Yeah, so funny.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Athens-Clarke County Board of Elections and Voter Registration regular meeting. The date is December 5th. The meeting was rescheduled. Our normal meeting is usually on the 12th. The staff and board will be attending a conference next week. We're at 120 West Doherty Street, Athens, Georgia, and the time is 4:36 p.m. First item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
I second.
Motion, Ms. Till, second, Ms. Fambro. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is adopted. Next item are the approval of minutes. There are two sets of minutes in front of you, November 13 and November 14th. Once you have a moment to review, chair will entertain a motion to approve.
I so move.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. Does everyone have an appropriate amount of time to review?
May I ask a question, please? The minutes on the back, the last page. You supposed to do something with those?
I think that was a record request. That's a response to a page of.
That's a response. Oh, thank you.
I could be wrong.
You're probably right. Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion? Mr. Kadir, second, was it?
Mhm.
Mr. Shirley, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Both sets of minutes, November 13th and 14th, are adopted as presented. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make comment? Okay. There's as though there's none. Next item on the agenda is the director's report, and the chair recognizes the director.
Thank you. Hope you all are doing well.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. So I have before you an agenda of a number of items, very important items. The first thing that I would like to share with you is our activity report for November 2023, as prepared by Pamela Long, our elections assistant. We have a total of 68,351 active voters, 13,724 inactive voters, a total of 82,075 eligible voters for Athens-Clarke County. We have 130 cancellation, 65 are from deceased records, and 65 are felony removals. We have produced 22 and provided 22 IDs, voter IDs for our community. And that's our report.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second item is our department's focus, and I wanted to share that we are in the process of updating our 2024 polling location changes. We do have kind of a slow start, as the Jarvis system redistricting module is not operating as it should. So we are in communication with them and hope that by the 14th, we'll return from the conference, that we'll be able to start entering some of our changes. We are doing some of our prep work right now, but we haven't identified that number of voters who are affected by these changes. That's something that we won't be able to identify until we actually put the changes in the system. We are, again, auditing the street segments. That's something that we've been working on, and making sure that all of our information is correct, so that when we begin to start entering the data, that we have something to work with. From that point, we will have additional staff that will come in and audit the information that we enter into Jarvis. But we are on our timeline, and I've let the Secretary of State's office know how important it is that we get this information in the system and ready to get cards to our voters early January. And if I might add, according to what I have researched, our U.S. congressional district did not change. So it looks like the information or the work that we've been doing so far will not be in vain. So, yes. Let's see, as mentioned earlier, we will at our 24 Gabriel conference, where we will obtain the training courses and hours that are required by the official code of Georgia. We will be there, the Classic Center, and again, Athens-Clarke County will be hosting the 158 counties. And we look forward to that networking and gaining more education on how to better serve our voters. The next item is number 4, to confirm the FY 24 budget new initiative that's due to me so that I can present it on December 8th. And I take it that, okay, that's coming, forthcoming. Thank you. The next item is recommendation of the vendor for the Spanish translation. If I could just kind of give you an outline. We reached out to 3 vendors, one being Ad-Astra, the other NWI Global. I'm not sure of the other one, but let me just give you a highlight that Ad-Astra responded and provided us a contract. NWI responded but did not provide a contract because they do not have one. And then the other vendor that I can't recall did not make contact with us, didn't respond to our request. So make note that Ad-Astra is an approved state vendor. And based on their response, the fact that they were responsive, they are responsible, and that we received their price timely. It appears economical as it opposed to NWI, which is a little difference in the pricing. And what we did is we sent them 2 documents, both vendors, 1 document, and got a pricing. One said 75 and one said around 54. Ad-Astra being the cheapest, but not to say that that's the reason of my recommendation. But I feel that Ad-Astra has proven to be compliant and agrees to the scope of work that was given. So my recommendation to the board is that we proceed with Ad-Astra. So we will continue with the procurement process, award them as the recommended vendor. The attorney's office will continue reviewing the contract. We will forward the contract to the Athens-Clarke County Risk and Safety for review. This will ensure that we have all of our provisions as it relates to our insurance. And then the contract will go to the vendor for review and return to us for a final draft. And then if both the vendor, Athens-Clarke County, the attorney's office and staff and risk agrees to what's included in the contract, then it will be forwarded to the vendor for their signature. And then once we receive the contract back, it will be forwarded to the manager's office and for the mayor or manager to affix their signature. They will review it and affix their signature. And then once all of the signature requirements are met, the work will begin. And I do have a handout of how I foresee the process so that if it's not, we just want it to be right. We want it to be decent. We want it to be in order. We want it to be not rushed, but accurate. So my recommendation is what you're receiving is that in March for the presidential preference primary, that we proceed with having all of our vote here signs and any signs that we can get translated and posted for the March election. Then for the May election, we would add the sample ballots and any letters that we send out to voters that will be translated and ready to roll out. The same thing for June. And then in November, we would add, well, I forgot the sample ballots, I did say that. Then in November, we would add the ballot, the paper ballot itself, and the ballot on the ballot marking devices. And then by November, December, we will have full translation. So first, to mention that Ad-Astra is the vendor that I recommend, and that will require your vote. And then if you would agree to the timeline that I have submitted to you. So next item is a call of a special election for the city of Winterville. They're requesting to have a question on the ballot to their voters that will be held in conjunction with the PPP election. And I have with me a call and the notice that will be published beginning on Sunday. And then the state election code requires that the notice be published 2 weeks consecutive prior to the election. And so we are including election day as well as on Sunday as an initial notice, and then the 2 Sundays prior. And that will require your signature as well. Item number 7 is the board member planning meeting that I would like to suggest or recommend that this is something that you guys have every January. And it be, if there is a need to acclimate a new board member, this would be the opportunity to do that. Orientation as well. But if there isn't a new board member, then this would be a time to look at your roles, responsibilities, your mission statement, if it needs to be revised. Any of your goals for 2024, that will be something that will be addressed. And then we would share with you our department strategic goals and to tell you exactly where we are with our goals. If we met them, if we're working on them, or if it's something that's going to be extended to another fiscal year. We would also in January like for you to schedule your dates and the content of your semi-annual retreat. And I've already let organization development, Ms. Patrice, know that you'll need her, and she just want to know kind of what you would like for it to look like. She's gonna get all of your little ideas and have a little something for you for your retreat.
I forgot her name. What is it?
Patrice
Patrice.
Nayatume.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is our open records report, and Audra has that for you.
Hello again. For the month of November 2023, we only have 1 open records request.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have one question. Anyone else have a question?
I do. Couple. Would it be, I assume that the approval of the vendor will be a vote that would need to go on the agenda later on. Would the call of the election for Winterville also need to?
Yes.
So we can take care of that. All right.
Anyone else have a question?
Yeah. Does Gabriel or conference have anything similar to, the board member introduction? I think we have a class for roles and responsibilities. I remember going last year.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but we don't know right now whether we have a new member coming in, so we couldn't invite them to go. That one wouldn't.
Right, but I would suggest if you can go to it, to attend that session,
Oh,
then
okay.
do, because there is one for
Yes.
Sunday. Not sure what time it starts. I
Yeah,
always like to go, but I won't be there Sunday. Have some other engagements.
yeah, Sunday at 4 or 5.
Of course, okay.
Some of it is repetitive,
Yes.
but it's nice to be there.
It is always good to hear what's being said.
And I do have a question on the Spanish language part, and maybe Mr. Shirley can also clarify. The vote you have received also includes the November general election for actual ballots. I thought we weren't at that point yet.
Well, by November next year, my understanding is there's money that's gonna be submitted as a new initiative that should cover that.
It hasn't been voted on yet. That's what we're going to decide on.
Yes.
But it's possible.
So we are
Yes.
just requesting that money in case we decide to go to that.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure about that, because I'm very interested to know, what kind of registration we have. I mean, if you only get 2 or 3 people coming in, that does tell me that our initial reach out hasn't worked well. So we need to improve on that before we can actually do that, which doesn't mean I'm against it. It just means we have to maybe spend more money on our outreach, for which I'm very, very supportive. And the second thing was, these actual ballots cost money. How are you going to go about deciding how many to print?
Yeah, so that's something we would have to, I guess attacked when the request is done. So you do know that we use a printing vendor.
Right.
So we would have to figure out how in the request, when the voter, and that's something that has to be worked out. So when the voter makes the request, they will have to select English or Spanish. And then when we enter the information into the vendor, we would have to indicate that this particular voter is requesting a Spanish ballot when it comes to paper ballot.
Paper ballot, right.
But if.
So
if
we
it's-
wouldn't be printing 30,000 of them, homemade. 6 of them get used.
Yeah, that's what I wanted.
The vendor would
Will be.
make
Right,
essentially.
right,
Band.
right.
That's good to know.
Spanish right now.
Right, and I don't know how the ballot marking devices will be set up, but I recall in the 2006 election in Hall County, we did a pilot of the Spanish and English option.
Mhm.
And when you inserted your voter card,
Yeah.
it asked if you wanted your ballot in English or Spanish. I don't know how it's gonna be, but I can imagine it will be that way.
I'm okay with the PMD part, if we get to go to that route, because once you make the translation, there is no overhead on the printing out, exactly like you said. I want you to be printing out 10,000 ballots for 5 people to show up. And so we can discuss that.
Yeah, and that, again, that's something that will have to be addressed because then we have the state law that requires us to have 1/10 of the number of registered voters. So now we have to determine as an emergency ballot, right? So we have to print 1/10 of that number of registered voters. So we have to determine how many of that 1/10 should be in Spanish. And is there something in the code? I don't think it's in the code, but how are the other counties doing it? Are they doing 1/10 of English and 1/10 of Spanish? So that's something
Yeah.
that has to be
That's something
looked into.
that Adam figured out, that we got the email talking about how many Spanish translations were needed. Would that not be some kind of indication to you?
Could be. Which number were we talking about? Which?
With Spanish translations from a ballot, where the director can figure out how many ballots they might need. Instead of 10,000, maybe they only need 1,000 because you've done the math and you figured out about how many Spanish translations we need.
Right.
So maybe you two could discuss that and that would help you figure out what you need.
Well,
I think
again, that's something that would have to be decided either by the board or by the state code, if that's something that would be a provision in the General Assembly. I don't know, but let's say, for instance, precinct 1A, we would know how many voters are registered in 1A by race. We would know that. So we could make that determination that way, but we don't know what provisions are
But
going
I
to.
think we have 3 elections to kind of inform our
That's true.
decision-making process.
Yeah.
Get a closer numbers. That part is 11 months away. So
One quick question on.
more worried about tomorrow than 11 months from now.
Yeah, we do have plenty of time. By law, is it possible for us to, because I might even be supportive for right away for the putting on the translation on the BMDs if we did not have to print any paper ballots, or is there, the law requires us that if you're going to have Spanish language ballots on the BMDs, we have to have paper ballots.
I would say that would be.
That would be the case. I hate, government spending money on something that's not gonna be needed.
Can we do like we do with our UACABA, where we print the ballot ourselves and the duplication team can duplicate? But again,
Not unless they know Spanish.
exactly. Well, 11 months away, I don't think.
But I think
That
that's no.
particular question needs to be answered today. Any other questions, Hank?
No.
I had 3 things. Just to point out that this is your recommendation, the timeline, that we can discuss and accept that or make changes as we feel necessary. I did see, going back to, your Jarvis thing at the beginning, I did see the SOS office was offering like a one-on-one meetings. Are we taking advantage of that? Or do we even need that? Or is that for people that just can't even get past?
I think it's for people who just can't get past certain areas in
Okay,
Jarvis. We're
it's not like,
well-versed.
we're like on
Yeah,
advanced level.
yeah. We just have some issues with some things that on the back end that we
Okay.
can't see that they're working on.
But they're like aware of it and trying to resolve it. Okay, that's great. That's what I figured, but I just wanted to check. Regarding the agenda, or sorry, regarding the board member planning in January 24. I know that Hank, and I'm just putting you on the spot. I didn't talk to you about this at all, but Hank has experience in these retreats from his professional career. I was wondering if you could work with Patrice to figure out an agenda. I think you had some ideas after the last one that might have made it go a little better.
Yeah, and because I felt strongly, it didn't feel like a retreat.
Yeah,
And so maybe this time we can.
I think maybe if the two of you
Okay.
have
I'd
a
be happy.
conversation, unless the other board members.
Okay.
We all need to talk.
Sure, okay.
I think we need to be involved with ideas that Hank has and presents and might spur something else in our thoughts.
Okay,
This is the February retreat, not the January
January.
planning. meeting. I thought we were
February retreat.
two things.
Yeah, so there's a January, like a planning meeting, but then there's a February retreat
I
that you
see.
do on February and August of each year.
That is what I'm talking about. Yeah,
Okay, February retreat.
that's all I had on director's report. Any last questions? First is old business, and it's a little unclear under the agenda, but item 1 was actually tabled, so just the secretary made a small clerical error. That is not on this agenda. So the next item is proceeding with Spanish language translation for spring 2024 elections. So we're kind of just segueing into the conversation we just had. I think that the board needs to vote on the staff's recommendation for a vendor. So let's do that first. And then if we want to talk about this timeline, we feel it's important, we should do that. And then we'll go from there. Chair recognizes Mr. Shirley.
I think for the spring thing, we're pretty much, as I look at the minutes from last month, we had already agreed to turn it over to staff as far as the recommendation for whom to go with for the first, and we just heard about the recommendation. So I guess I could make a motion to go ahead and approve their recommendation for proceeding with this contractor. But I'm
Chair will entertain.
All right, so moved. I move that I move that we approve staff's recommendation to, there was specific wording that we used here. If we was it accept, award them as recommended vendor, that was the wording I heard you use. Is that the wording we need to mention in our motion here? That we accept your recommendation to award Ad Astra as the recommended vendor? Is that what okay. That's the term of art we need to use, to award Ad Astra as the recommended vendor. So I move that we approve staff's recommendation to award Ad Astra as the recommended vendor. Thank you, that's right, for Spanish translation services. Got it.
We read that. You can second. Okay.
I was gonna second it, but.
Can you read it again and then we can vote?
I will. I move that we approve the staff's recommendation to award Ad Astra as the recommended vendor for Spanish translation services.
I
Good.
second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. Ad Astra has been selected by the board. So that's good. Another step forward. Anything you want to discuss on timeline? Anything?
All that I would point out.
Not the budget related item?
Right. All that I would point out is that I agree with you that you pointed out this proposed timeline is a calendar year thing, and sort of what we're running into is the fiscal year issue, right? The money that has already been allocated in our current budget will run out in June, but this timeline logically goes forward into the November election, which we have not yet settled on. That goes into our new business plan, or I guess, right, our next agenda item. That's my thoughts on timeline. I think I like that. It makes sense that I wish that we had been able to get things together in time to have the full offering for March, but I understand the March election is going to be pretty straightforward, which of these names for president. And that's that. If we're going to pare things down to the simple thing, I think that works. It makes sense to me. But I'm eager to hear what you think.
I would just think, could we have like a little quarter sheet flyer that says what's coming timeline?
Oh, like to promote this.
Promote the other things that are coming in the future. I mean, vote here, that's 2 words, it's just not much work.
I'm not following. Do you mean whatever? So
Well,
this timeline broadcasts this to the community, like this is what's coming?
Possibly. So it says signage. Does that mean just the vote here sign, or does that mean all the signs?
So that's one of the things that I did. I reached out to the Secretary of State's office to find out about the signs that they provide us, that are the additional signs, the notice of penalties, all of those different state signs, where they don't offer them in Spanish, so they will have to be translated.
Oh, okay. It's not just this vote here sign.
Yes, yes. Vote here signs, that's gonna be easy. That's just getting with the vendors that we order signs from, which already has them in Spanish.
Right.
So we'll be working on that, but we're gonna also work on the other signs. But our goal is to at least get the vote here signs, and if we can get the other signs, then we're good. To have at least all the signs by May.
Right.
But if we get some done,
Right.
then
Better to-
pay us.
Better to
Oh.
under promise and over deliver versus.
And I see you're thinking, because you're concerned that Ad Astra might not be onboarded completely by March, and then it's too late. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
By the way, how do you say vote in Spanish?
I've just seen something aquí,
That
I
means-
just remembered that.
That means here.
So vote here.
Vote is,
Aquí.
okay.
Vote aquí. There we go. That's what I saw.
This is why we hired Ad Astra. That's exactly why.
Back years ago, that's what it said. Aquí.
Vote deep. It's just,
Google Translate, vote de aquí.
okay,
Vote
Anyway.
vote.
we can play with that after. Do the board members feel we need to vote on this, or anything on the schedule, proposed plan? Anybody have a strong opinion? Okay, move on. Next item under old business is Spanish language translation funding for FY 25. Chair recognizes Mr. Sharpley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am excited to continue the discussion for the purposes of people who might be tuning in and wanting the nutshell version of where we got. We have already in the budget enough funding to get us through the June part of the election cycle, but that leaves, of course, the general election. And I, like the rest of us, I'm wanting to see how this goes before we decide what we want to do for the next phase. But because of our budget process, if we wait until then to start talking about what money we would like to have, it's far too late to request money to be in the budget. So the narrow focus of this agenda item is just to simply ask your support to leave open the door for us to formally request that there be money in the budget, to therefore leave the door open to us to, if we do decide to proceed, the money is there to fund that effort. When we had discussed this last time, I had not been able to get enough numbers to really get a firm estimate. I've since been able to. I think the number I'd mentioned last month was 60,000 as a safe estimate. I've been able to pare that down, as I mentioned in the email that I sent you all. And speaking with Gwinnett or DeKalb County's Board of Elections, I learned that it seems like what I'd like to leave us available to do is more than what they currently do, much more like what Gwinnett does. Not making it mandatory that we do everything, but just maybe leaving it open that we can if we wanted to. We can go all the way in with this if we want to. And so I was able to get a lot of information from them, and I shared with you all the numbers and how I calculated things. The estimate came out to, like I mentioned, I feel like 30,000 would be a safer number. And again, I'll be the first one to say this is not working out. If we have a bad experience with this come March and then May, But I think that builds in a little bit of allowing for inflation because my numbers are based on the 2022 election cycle. Maybe printing costs will be higher, that kind of thing. And so 30,000 is what I would like to propose. I'd like to ask your support in us asking staff to include that in the budget proposal for 2025. That's the nutshell version of what I've got going on.
I think we've all so talked about the vote here signs and other things we can reuse. So I think bringing the budget down from 60 to 30 is much more palatable to everybody because we haven't done this yet. We don't know how well it will work. So I think it'd be better to kind of creep along and see how it works out and what adjustments we need.
Absolutely. And this will just give us flexibility. This is not at all us signing up for going all in for something. It's just leaving us the wiggle room, the latitude to decide.
Did, at last meeting, the director had requested you write some kind of.
For the new initiative,
Yeah.
I have some sample text, or not sample text, some text that I've been putting together. If this were to be approved, I have an email ready to send to you, copying all of us with what I think would satisfy the fields in that initiative form.
Okay.
And of course, knowing that that can be changed to suit y'all's needs, but you had mentioned with the deadline being so quick, that'd be a lot of paperwork to put on you at the last possible minute. So yes, I've been able to put some language together for that. So.
Imagine she appreciates that. Before calling you, Hank or Willow, do you have any comments?
Not right now.
I just commend the work you have done. I think outreach for Spanish language is extremely important. And if it is there, I think we should definitely go to the next step.
I have a question. When you spoke with Gwinnett County, that number that you give, is that for just one election? Because there's a December election that we'll need the ballot translated for.
Right.
So.
That, my estimate incorporates that. It accounts for that.
Gotcha.
So as you pointed out, like that's something we're not sure will happen. And if it does, we would like to offer consistency to the voters. So yes, I did include that in the estimate.
Okay, and my last question. We usually have billboards during election time. Are you wanting any of the billboards in Spanish? And then if you are, then I think asking for the 45 will cover anything that comes up. Like something like
Is
that,
that
or a
funding
pamphlet.
the billboards, or is that the translation that you would send to the billboard company?
I was the translation to the billboard company and then share it with, at Astra and then provide it to.
Because don't you have a separate line item for marketing or advertising or whatever it says?
I do, but it's all an elections expense. It's what I usually put
Oh,
in.
okay.
Yes.
This is new.
I love the idea of including more funding for that. I like not knowing enough about this world. That much more for what would be for as far as the billboard company, we simply, we give them what we want it to say and they make it happen. And we pay that fee, whether it's in English or Romanian or, right? And so for the translation, meanwhile, Astra doesn't care if the text will be this big or this big, they're translating into Spanish. Is that too much? I don't want to make the manager's office, laugh at us for suggesting too much money. Is that a reasonable amount to go?
I'm just trying to understand 15,000 when we already have the text. That's why I'm asking, is it? Because if we weren't having this conversation at all and you want to vote on November 2024 billboards up, you would be spending that money anyway.
Right. But then you have to pay the Ad Astra to translate this billboard. So that's a
These would
cost.
be additional billboards.
But
This isn't bilingual. This isn't English and Spanish on the same billboard.
I wouldn't do.
No, I was confused.
I see.
These are additional.
That's why I was confused.
15,000.
I see now.
I would not do that. And I'm gonna tell you, the billboard company would not recommend it because they give their recommendation. People are driving by.
Mhm.
They're
It's
not
hard
gonna
to-
be able to go,
That's why I was
Right,
confused.
right.
I see. Okay.
So
I see now.
a separate billboard. So we may end up having to get an additional billboard instead of the 10 that we normally use. We may end up doing 12 or 15.
understand.
That makes sense.
Got it.
Thank you. Yep.
Got it.
But it's all in,
Out of it.
so, and the
You gotta ask the
way
question.
finance has it set up that if I don't have enough money in postage, which is also under operations, because I have that money in elections expense, I'm fine because it can be taken and adjusted
I
that
see.
way. But it's all in operations.
I got you.
An additional 45 instead of 30 or 40 opposed to 30. It still gives us a little cushion that if you come up with another idea, you may decide, we want to do something else, but we'll have that money there within reason.
That makes sense to me. This gets quickly into the more the manager's office side of things. And I guess this might end up being a question for Manager Jones, but when a department makes a request of a certain amount of money, is it like all or nothing? Can the manager's office revise it down and say, if you give us X, you're asking for X, we'll give you X minus 10 or 50% of X? Or is it like, no, sorry, you don't get what you asked for? Okay, like
Doesn't the mayor and commission make that?
or, and you recommend that to the mayor and so on, but like, as far as your process goes.
So there's the manager's budget and there's the mayor's budget, and generally they're close. Yeah, very close. And then that goes to the full mayor and commission. So when we put our budget together, yes, we take everybody's consideration or budget consideration, the request in consideration. It's just not Charlotte requesting it. It's 46, 41 departments, 43 departments, whatever it is. What we look for is why the increase, right? So, is it a new program? Is it a new initiative? In this sense, this is a new initiative, right? So we would take that into consideration.
I got you.
And it's part of our strategic goal.
That's right. Okay.
All right.
Right.
If there are no further questions.
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Just curious about how the law works. Let's say we do get the funding and we are able to implement ballots in Spanish. Are we then required to have every subsequent election having Spanish translation? Just curious, does the law require us to do that or not really?
I don't think the law requires you to do any of it. And so
Okay.
if you choose to do it for 1 year, and you decide to discontinue it, I don't think
We are okay for that. Okay.
Floor is open for a motion to approve. I'm gonna say the 45,000, the director's recommending.
I would move that we ask staff to include in the fiscal year 2025 budget, a new initiative in the amount of $45,000 for Spanish translation.
All right, that is recognized. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay.
Before it comes to a vote, I remember you'd mentioned 45 or 40, like what number, 30,000 is what I'm confident will cover what I had come in curious about.
Read the motion again,
I will.
and then we'll have the discussion, and then we can vote.
Okay, sure.
Just seconded by Ms. Fair.
Oh, I see. I move that we ask staff to include in the fiscal year 2025 budget, a new initiative in the amount of $45,000 for Spanish translation.
Okay, floor is open for discussion.
I think that's fine. I don't think we have to worry about changing the numbers because the manager just said they can work with the staff. And if that means we go from 12 billboards to 10, then the staff can figure out which would be the appropriate, where to cut one down. That's not the detail we need to be engaged in right now, as I see it.
Any other comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The motion passes, 45,000 recommended in the FY 25 budget. Next item on the agenda is to amend the agenda to include a new business item. So the chair will entertain a motion to amend the agenda to include the Winterville call of special election for March.
I so move.
Okay, do we have a second? Motion Ms. Till, or excuse me, motion Ms. Pamrose, second Ms. Till. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the agenda is adopted or amended rather. And as mentioned in the director's report, the city of Winterville is requesting us to call a special election for March. So I will read this document and then the floor is open for motion. Call a special election for the purpose of submitting a question to the voters of the city of Winterville Sunday sales of distilled spirits or alcoholic beverages for purposes by the drink, for beverage purposes by the drink.
This be adopting a resolution? Would it be just a?
Yeah, it's a resolution. Says it is further resolved, so yes.
I move that we adopt the resolution regarding special election a call of special election for the city of Winterville.
Do we have a second? Okay. Motion, Mr. Shirley, second, Ms. Till. All those in favor of adopting the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolution is adopted. Next and final item on the agenda are announcements. We will be on oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can amend the agenda, but I think you can just talk about it if you'd like.
Yeah, we don't have to amend the agenda, you know, like you say, you can just talk about it, you know.
There was just a question down here about the office's role and assisting in the firefighters election. I think some other board members just wanted a bit more explanation.
Yes. Try to explain. Okay.
Yeah.
So there has been a request of the International Association for Firefighters to hold an election for their bargaining agent. And the elections office will be conducting that election for them. A ballot will be presented to the firefighters. We'll have a list of those voters and they will show their ID. Starting on Monday, we will have what we refer to as absentee voting for any of the firefighters who will be absent during the day of those elections, the day of the election, which starts December 19th, 20th, and 21st. And upon them presenting documentation to show that they will be out of town or not available during those 3 days, and showing their ID, they can vote an absentee ballot that will be provided by our office. And then we will host their election from 10 to 5, the 19th and 20th at the downtown fire station number 1. And then on the 21st, the election will be tabulated after the close, after 5 o'clock, and our staff will be available to tabulate their results. And yes, that's what we'll be doing.
And
Is there any certification required?
I believe that's being worked out, and I believe the attorney's office will be certifying the election. Is that right? Who will certify
No,
that?
I don't believe, I think you are.
Oh,
is my understanding.
We will be certifying the election to say that these are what the results are.
and
We're certifying the election. And our offices that Warrington. Okay,
Do you have any?
so to be staff, will be certifying the election.
staff.
Okay, that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
Certainly.
that's open to the public. There's the certification meeting, I guess.
Yes, anybody can observe the process. It is open. And the tabulation, my idea is that we will have voting in one room and then the tabulation will be done in another room to have an act of moving from the results going from one location to the other. So it'll be from one room to the other. That's my idea.
And
A lot of that's,
Blaine mentioned there will be like representatives from both parties observing. So,
that's correct.
and members of the public. If they-
Yes, yes. Yes, and we're excited about assisting in this process because any opportunity that we have to hold an election, it gives us more ideas of best practices and next practices.
Blaine also mentioned that his bid was, he had tried to get he got a bid from an outside company and it was
8,200.
8,200. And so in an effort to save money, he asked our office to conduct.
So here we go, right before 2024.
Right.
If I might add to, for your January meeting, I will not be here. Lisa will carry the meeting. Be doing some conference
Okay.
meetings. So
In town or in Atlanta?
be in Virginia and DC
Yes.
in the cold.
Okay. The announcement is Tuesday, January 9th at 4:30 PM. This location, which is 120 West Doherty Street. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Before we do, Mr. Chair, I just noticed Ms. Elson is here, and would she like to speak? I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
That's out of order. She would have spoke during public
At the
comment.
beginning.
You were here before. Oh, okay.
Yes, it was.
I didn't notice that.
If I might, an announcement, small announcement, very small.
The motion hasn't been seconded, so it dies.
Is that- I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I promise I will second in a moment. I'm sorry. I just want to thank everybody on the staff. This has been an amazing year. A whole lot of stuff got done. We asked that you take on so much more work than what you normally do. And as always, y'all just took it in stride and did amazing things. You make it look easy, but it's not easy. And I'm learning that more and more each time we do things. But thank you all so much. What the precincts that we overhauled completely, not completely, but we took a hard look at all of it. You made it happen. Spanish translation went from to a let's go. And we have so many more things going on too, but thank you all so much. I'm so happy to be a part of this, to be a small part of this awesome thing we have going on. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Motion on the floor, but if it,
Happily second the motion if it hasn't.
we need to make the motion now because it failed.
I so move,
I
we
second.
dismiss.
Okay, second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is dismissed,
Aye.
5:23.
I'm sorry.